Devlin, Untamed. The platform.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Highlights of today's show, iOS, It's Only Sport. That's the name of the program that airs every afternoon on the platform, 1 till 4. What is the platform? You've got to download the app. It is independent, free media. My name is Martin Devlin. Lachlan War alongside 3 hours of glorious sport every afternoon condensed into this 45-minute or so package for you. Test cricket is just the nuts. It's the berries, it's the twigs, it's the branches, it's the roots. It's the trunk, it's the upper canopy, lower canopy, it's the whole goddamn rainforest. Who said Test cricket is dead? Please. It's just killing it. 2 brilliant matches overnight. Big upset results in both the Windies and England. Victors, Australia licking their wounds in India, shrugging their shoulders and wondering how the hell did we lose that? We cover both of those for you. The Australian Open, a brand new men's winner. His name, Carrot Top, Jannik Sinner. The Phoenix sit atop the A-League table. Is it time to start talking about the minor premiership and home field advantage into the playoffs? The FA Cup 4th round was played today. NFL Conference Championship finals. Matt Gunn was positive out of Twizel. So much to try and squeeze into this highlights package. But as always, we start the program. Tablets in hand, I say gather my flock. What do we learn from the weekend sport? Let us go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
So much sport across the weekend. What did we learn? Where do you even start? Might just about be time up for Novak Djokovic, the best player that the world has ever seen with a tennis racket in his hand. Lost in the semi-finals on Friday to the eventual winner of the Aussie Open, Jannik Sinner. Is this the end of the biggest 3 ever in world tennis? Certainly looks imminent. In the meantime, Sabalenka has what it takes to go on and dominate the women's side of the game. Will certainly be one of the top 2 or 3 players consistently winning slams for the next few years. Back-to-back Aussie Opens after that dramatic collapse in the US last year. We learned that our 7 sides are vulnerable. Did you even know that the World Series 7 circuit was going on in Perth over the weekend? Debut for Perth. Not bad crowds. But the men, latest round saw our boys fail to exit the group stage. They lost to France and Fiji, and the girls crashed out in the quarters to Aussie. This is the 3rd of 8 events. How much can be read into any of it? I don't know. Probably not a huge amount. It's all about the Olympics in Paris and the gold medal that potentially awaits. We learned that the Phoenix are for real. When is it time to start talking about them as a real title chance? Coach Giancarlo says it's still all about one game at a time. We've just passed the halfway stage in terms of fixtures, 14 played in a 27-game campaign. The Knicks keep on winning on the road, and keep on holding on that top spot. Yeah, it's very clear they are one of the best teams in the A-League right now. The Breakers are alive, just clinging to the possibility of making the playoffs. Just played twice over the weekend, and again, it's been the story of the season. Win 1, lose 1. 1 on Friday night, lost yesterday. And a game to the Illawarra Hawks that could have been won, but just couldn't close down the stretch. 5 to go, and they're going to have to win 4 of them. Jurgen Klopp is leaving Liverpool. Is this the beginning of the end of the current purple patch for the Scousers? He's going to exit the club at the end of the season. His influence has been absolutely immense on Merseyside. He's won every trophy going. Most importantly, though, for Liverpool fans, the Premier League for the first time, 30 years in 2020. He's a superb coach. And superb news for every Man United fan like myself, for all hoping his exit is going to turn into the same kind of collapse that we've had since Sir Alex left. 10 years or more in the wilderness, Liverpool fans. It awaits. Cliff diving pulls a crowd. Who knew? But on Auckland anniversary weekend, well, this is when Aucklanders leave town in their droves. The city is deserted. There was live sport on at the races at Ellerslie on Saturday. The Super Smash final, Eden Park Sunday, an international cliff diving circuit event on Auckland's waterfront yesterday. More people at the races, as you'd expect, but seriously more at the cliff diving than at the domestic T20 cricket final. Should New Zealand cricket be worried? How worried? And if they aren't worried, why aren't they worried? Speaking of cricket, we'll finish on that. Test cricket is still the nuts. 2 remarkable, more than memorable test matches over the weekend. The Windies beating Oz and Oz for the first time in 27 years. And bowling Australia out for the first time since 2009. England creating all sorts of records of their own, beating India in Hyderabad. including the first time India had a 100-run lead after the first innings at home and lost in 106 matches. Meanwhile, there's 4 separate T20 tourneys going on around the world at the moment. Did you know that? 4 separate ones. South Africa, the International League Series, there's Bangladesh, the Super Smash. Yet these 2 test matches will be talked about for years, decades, and no one's going to remember anything about any of those T20 tournaments, let alone what happened, who won, who did what. Test cricket continues to be the greatest form of the game, and the way that it is shunned and sidelined by the ICC remains also its greatest shame. God bless Test cricket.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Lachlan, headlines, and take the lemon out of your mouth and celebrate the fact that Taylor Swift is on the way to the Super Bowl in Vegas.
I don't even want to entertain such a possibility, but sadly, it's not a possibility. It's happening.
It's real.
It's reality.
It's reality.
I'll start off with the NFL. Now, I was all in on the Ravens and the 49ers. I looked at some numbers, crunched them over the weekend. I just saw some stats. I just thought there's no way that the Ravens and the Niners both lose.
Well, Lamar
I just can't see it.
Bottle it again as a quarterback at home. He can't. He got the monkey off his back last weekend, didn't he, against the Texans?
Well, to an extent, yeah.
Clearly not.
So the first of the 2 championship games of the NFL on today, the Ravens hosting the Chiefs. The Ravens far and away. Shut up. The Ravens far and away the best team in the NFL this season. Beat everything that was thrown, every team that was thrown their way, and I can't even get my words here. A couple of questionable refereeing decisions, but at the end of the day, they shot themselves in the foot. Really strange calls on offense. They had almost double the number of passing plays than running plays, and this was a team that during the season had the most rushing yards, had one of the best averages, were top 4 in yards, attempts, touchdowns, and yards per attempt.
Means nothing when you bottle it like that. And a young guy called Zay Flowers, is sitting there crying with his head in his hands. Talk about a clown. You cost your team a chance to go to the Super Bowl, Dick.
17-10 the final score. The Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl. They have a chance to win back-to-back and actually win their 3rd in the space of 5 years. And yes, Travis Kelce, who plays for the Chiefs, is dating Taylor Swift.
Yes, he is.
And
they pashed afterwards.
Yeah, she was on the field.
They pashed. Fantastic.
I mean, we should have seen it coming last week when they got through to the championship game. We sat there and said, what does the NFL want? The Ravens and the bullies that they are and Lamar Jackson?
Yep.
Or do they want Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and Taylor Swift in Vegas for the Super Bowl?
This will be the most watched television event of the decade in sport, the Super Bowl.
Well, depending on who they play. If they play the Niners, yes. If they play the Lions, maybe not.
It's all about Tay-Tay, mate.
Currently, the Lions and the 49ers, they're underway in the NFC Championship game. The winner of this playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. The Niners at home, but they're down 14-0. So maybe the Devlin curse, maybe there's a wall curse. Whatever I bet on, that doesn't happen. Bet on the Ravens and the Niners heavy today, none of that's happening. Bet on Novak Djokovic on Friday night, that didn't work out. Don't come to me for betting advice, it appears. Anyway, all right, some more positive news. Well, not really, because she lost. Kiwi golfer Lydia Ko has finished 2nd best in a dramatic sudden death playoff at the Drive On Championship in Florida. This on the LPGA Tour. The win would have put Ko into the LPGA Tour Hall of Fame. Didn't eventuate though. American Ellie Corder beating Ko in the playoff, and she secured the victory, winning on the 2nd extra hole. Silver Ferns have cemented a third place finish at the Nations Cup in Leeds with a 62-57 win over Uganda this morning. Meanwhile, though, post-match, something of note involving coach Dame Nolan Toldo, who doesn't appear ready to commit to either sticking around or leaving her job with the Ferns. She insists an announcement is imminent. A couple of direct quotes here. I'm still not sure. I'm really, really glad this tournament is over, if I'm honest, so I can get into that space to make a decision. NBL news, the Breakers' hopes of a playoff spotter again hanging in the balance, losing 89-85 to the Illawarra Hawks yesterday. They win a game and they're back in the hunt, and then they lose a game, and sort of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 1 step back kind of situation for the Breakers this year. Cricket news, Ollie Pope combined with Tom Hartley to pull off a heist in Hyderabad, where England humbled India in their opening test. This followed on, of course, from the West Indies' incredible victory over Australia at the Gabba yesterday. 2 brilliant matches of test cricket. And they all started at about the same time, didn't they? but England winning the first test there against India by 28 runs in the end. They have 5 tests, actually. It's not there's 5 of them. All right, FA Cup action. Liverpool played this morning, beating Norwich 5-2. Watford and Southampton drawing 1-1, so there'll be a replay there. Man United beating the mighty Newport County 4-2. Everton were knocked out yesterday by Luton 2-1. Leicester beating Birmingham over the weekend as well. Man City beating Tottenham. Tottenham were appalling in that match. I saw bits and pieces of it. And there's some fourth round replays coming up involving Chelsea and Aston Villa. We'll have Nottingham Forest, Bristol in there. Leeds playing as well. The Wellington Phoenix women's side have withstood a couple of head-scratching referee decisions to beat Canberra United 2-0 in the women's A-League match yesterday. Apart from that, Martin, it looks to be what is making news.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Scott Bailey from AAP joins us. Scott, the last time we were talking was during that amazing Ashes series last year. Well, overnight last night, we've just seen 2 incredible test matches, 2 amazing finishes, 2 real kind of surprise results, the away team winning. Let's just concentrate first on the Gabba. And some of the stats. The Windies hadn't won an Aussie for 27 years. First time they'd bowled you out since 2009, and the first pink ball test lost by Australia. Remarkable.
Just incredible. And you think about the last win in Australia 27 years ago, and the kind of names they had in that team: Brian Lara, Carl Hooper, Jimmy Adams, Courtney Walsh, Curtly Ambrose. The list goes on. Compared to this side, which had, let's be honest, when they got here, we were all scratching our heads going, how terrible is this series going to be? They had 7 uncapped players in their squad of 15. A couple of other guys that only played 1 test match. So for them to come out and do what they did yesterday, as you say, at the Gabba in a pink ball test for Australia, just don't lose. And also, even Australia's record in recent times against sides outside from India and South Africa in Australia. I think it's the first time Australia has lost to team other than those guys since 2011, and put that in perspective, when South Africa beat Australia here in a test in 2012-13, they were ranked number 1 in the world. When India has come here twice and beaten Australia, they've been ranked number 1 in the world. South Africa did it once when they weren't number 1, but they would have been close to it. For West Indies to come do it, ranked number 8 in the world, we all know the issues that are going on in West Indies cricket. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah, and for those of us of the aged stage, I mean, we look back, I was actually penning a piece for this test match finishes, and I've just had to rip up and throw away about, and it was about the disappointment of the Australian cricket summer. Pakistan and the West Indies just come here as cattle for cannon fodder, and they just both get beat. So to tune in yesterday, I mean, honestly, did you believe that the West Indies could win this on the final day?
I mean, after day 1, I sort of had the feeling that if West Indies could bowl like they did in Adelaide, then they were in with half a chance. But it was, it was a big if, wasn't it? I think it was a largely optimistic view of Test cricket to think that was possible, especially considering it just felt like the kind of pitch that once you got through the new ball, it was pretty easy to bat on. Going into yesterday, I mean, when Smith and Cameron Green were batting the way they were, it to me felt like it was game over. Australia would win that one quite comfortably, and then all of a sudden, obviously, Cameron Green, Travis Head go in quick succession. You go, well, maybe. Just maybe. And then I think when Marsh and Kerry went, all of a sudden it was like, well, this isn't maybe, this is on here. And it was great. I mean, it's so rare you see test matches go down to the wire like that one did. We spoke about that a bit during the Ashes, obviously. So it was great that it got to the conclusion that it did, I think.
Look, and here in New Zealand, Scott Bailey, AAP, with us providing great coverage of Test cricket, the Ashes last year and this West Indian win yesterday, takes us back to that Hobart Test and so many parallels. You've got an Australian batsman carrying his bat through the innings. It gets under 10 runs. You've got a New Zealander on debut, Bracewell, who got a 5 for. You've got Sharma Joseph, and that fantastic story comes from a village of 350 people. It takes you, 3 aeroplane rides, 2 boat rides, and about a month to get there from any of the other islands. All of these kind of things. The guy's got a broken toe, Scott. He's got a broken... He arrives at the ground, he says he's not playing. He doesn't think he'll play.
Mate, I said on his first or second day of Test cricket that I think this guy has arguably the best story in Test cricket this century. I'm now certain of it. It's not arguably, it's locked in. I mean, the fact that, he comes from a village where in 2018 they didn't have the internet, and it's, as you say, a 6-hour boat ride away from the nearest town. He goes there as a security guard a couple of years ago, plays a bit of cricket while there. They look at him and go, this guy's got some talent. Last February makes his debut in professional cricket, and then comes out in Adelaide last week and gets Steve Smith for the first 40 bowls, Marnus Labuschagne a few balls later, a few overs later. That's a pretty cool story. But then to do what he did yesterday, take 7 wickets after returning with a broken toe to win a match for the West Indies that they never looked, no one ever thought they were going to win a match out here this summer, or a test match out here this summer. To do that, look it in. It would take some doing for it to be beaten as the best story in test match cricket this century. I'm aware there's still 76 years to go, and I won't be around for all those 76 years. But, I think you can lock it in. What
does it mean now, though, for New Zealand? Because looking at Cummins afterwards and the disappointment there, I feel that we might be getting a bit of a backlash here now.
Well, it's funny that you say that. Like, I actually thought Pat Cummins was relatively... I'd say he could see the silver lining of the result. Like, I don't think Australians never like losing, that's a fact. But I think Pat Cummins sort of looked at that and went, you know what, that's probably, I can see why that's a good story for Test cricket. Like, he sort of alluded to that in his press conference, that he could see the positives in that. As for what it means for the New Zealand series, I mean, I think that you look at New Zealand and say that if they can trouble Australia's top order again with the ball moving, now I don't think the ball hasn't moved as much over there as it was, say, 10, 15 years ago, but if they could trouble Australia's top order with the ball moving around a bit, maybe we could see similar results. I don't think Australia's batting has been that great this summer, even going through the Pakistan test. So, I'd like to think we see a similarly competitive series in New Zealand. What have we got? 2 test matches, maybe one's one-sided, one's close, a bit like this West Indies series. But, the chances are there for New Zealand to cause a similar upset, I would suggest.
How has the reaction been the next day in Australia? Because as I said, look, and it's no disrespect at all. What it is it's actually a mark of respect that when Australia loses a cricket test, the whole rest of the world celebrates, because it just doesn't happen that often. I mean, it's a bit like, I suppose, if the Wallabies ever managed to beat the All Blacks again, or actually get that Bledisloe Cup back, mate. I mean, it's now a generational thing. So, when you consider 27 years and that West Indian side of the 70s, 80s, it was just such a strong side. It just devastated batting lineups everywhere around the world. So to wait that long, what is, I mean, does the average Australian cricket fan, do you think, like somehow the fact that the West Indies actually proved something?
Oh, I think so. I think that there's certainly been, I haven't heard a lot of talk about radio this morning, but my gut feel is, and from what I've seen on social media, is, I think Australians are actually okay with this result. That, or there's certainly a fair section of them that are. I think if Australia had lost the series, then it'd be a different story. If West Indies had come here and beat Australia 2-0, there'd be, a coronial inquest on how does this happen against a side that's in the position they are. But I think that, a lot of Australians look at this and go, this is good for Test cricket. Everyone wants West Indies to be strong again. We've all bemoaned the fact that they aren't strong. I think there's a real sense that this is a good thing for Test cricket, that West Indies have been able to do what they do. Hopefully it means that Shamar Joseph and co will stick in Test cricket. He alluded to that fact yesterday. After that, so hopefully that means that next time they're here, they're just as strong and Test cricket can thrive. So I think there are genuinely a lot of Australians who are quite okay if this is on. I mean, I know I am. I think it's great for Test cricket, and I think a lot of Australians sort of feel the same.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. He's at Melbourne International Airport, ready to win his way back to New Zealand after another late night last night. Dave Worsley, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Marty. I'm here at the very terrible Melbourne Airport, but that's fine. About to go through customs and fly back.
Sabalenka, to start with quickly, back-to-back for the woman with no flag, the Belarusian. She comfortably accounted for Coco Gauff and ended up barnstorming the tournament without dropping a set.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she's just so strong. But what she reminded me of was Serena Williams at her prime. So aggressive and intimidating in many ways. Intimidating the way she walks onto the court, the way she did everything. And that was the whole presence that, to my mind, Serena Williams had in her prime as well. In fact, if you put the ball in the hitting zone of both Serena and Sabalenka, then you're gone. You're effectively gone. And this was the problem, that Zhang couldn't quite move her around enough, couldn't quite vary the play, and was always on the back foot all the way throughout the match.
Yeah, look, after collapsing in that final at the US Open, which you were at last year, apparently she's done a lot of work on the mental side of the game. She's brought in psychiatrists and sport consultancy, whatever it is, and so forth. But just getting her to the stage where, when it comes to pressure points, handling those moments, obviously something has changed, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, I think the loss helped, and she even admitted that, even though she didn't feel great about it, of course, winning 6-love the first set and then losing the next two. That's going to take a lot out of you. But in many ways, it helped her to actually think, okay, if I start well, I can't just take my foot off and go, oh, well, I've got the first set easy, the rest will be fine. Well, that's the way it is. You've got to actually keep continuing. And even as we saw in the men's final as well, you can't just let your foot off when you're playing someone like Djokovic, when you're playing in the semi-final of a women's tournament as well. You've got to carry on. Don't relent. And, well, she was relentless. From day one, from point one, she was relentless and just didn't let up against Zhang, who was obviously got a lot of potential, but still a little way to go when it comes to that first Grand Slam final.
Let's turn our attention then to Carrot Top and his Carota band of fans. The semi-final on Friday was brilliant, mate. He out-Novak'd Novak. The power tennis, the confidence, not to concede a break point, but also after Novak won that third set, we're talking about the semi before the final here, Pete, because it's really important, because after Novak won that third set, his gestures to the crowd, the fist pumping and everything else, half of that was psychological, half of that was trying to get inside Sinner's head and create doubt there. And when Sinner had 3 break points, Novak's first service game in the fourth, didn't convert them. Then he was down love 40 in the second service game from Novak. I thought that was the turning point of the match there, Dave. I thought him coming back to win that and break that game was why he won the tournament.
Oh, exactly. That was it. I mean, he just showed resolve from really looking as if he was going to probably lose that set and, with Novak probably going to lose the match as well, because Novak was just so good at holding on and winning those matches and, 10 Aussie Open. That's a fantastic record. So to beat Novak, and I think what happened in the final as well, it was almost as if that he had played his final. And we were all thinking, oh no, this is going to be over in straight sets and it's going to be gone. He played his final a couple of days ago against Novak, when in fact he actually came back and showed. I mean, I'm impressed by a 22-year-old Sinner. I know I predicted him and all that.
You did.
Sure,
yeah.
in the top. He was in the top 4. It wasn't that I actually, I had a good chance that he was going to do well. I just didn't expect him to really beat Sinner, to beat Djokovic like that, and then to stage such a remarkable comeback. He was playing better than even I expected. I'm not sure whether it was better than what he expected either sometimes. I mean, that result was just fantastic. And I think, like you said, beating Djokovic and certainly looking down in that final set was just quite remarkable to come back and show that he actually did have the mental strength to do so.
Medvedev, 3 5-setters in the tournament. He comes back from 2 down a couple of times. Did he just run out of legs in the end there?
I think he did. He had 3 going into the final, then another one.
Sorry, that's right.
He played around 25 hours of tennis or something like that. Something ridiculous.
But he played something ridiculous. Like he played about 6 or 7 sets more than everyone else. I think he played another 3 or 4 hours or he was on court longer than everyone else. It's got to take its toll, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, you can see he's incredibly fit. Some of the shots, there was one particular rally that he just picked up the ball against us and then, just did something remarkable. And you think, you shouldn't be able to do that. Doesn't matter who you are, what you are, how long you've played. But he just seems to get to things. But I think in the end, his body did actually give out. And he's just such an entertaining player. And I love his quotes at the end, like, about, been runner-up, but I guess it could be worse. I guess I could have lost earlier in the tournament. And he was very humble about being runner-up. He was also very praiseworthy of a Sinner as well. You've got to give the guy a lot of credit, and you've also got to give him a little bit of sympathy as well for being runner-up again at a Grand Slam.
Moan. I'm
moaning
sick
all
of
the
it.
time.
It's Monday. I got to moan on, all right. When is world tennis, the ATP, the WTA, those that run the Pro Tours, when are they going to remove their heads from their own backsides, stop this utter pretensive protest about the invasion of Ukraine, and reinstate the Russian and Belarusian flags beside those players at future events? It's beyond pathetic now. The protest is dead. It's meaningless, pointless, and the worst tokenism that could ever be displayed because it does nothing. Sabalenka just won the Aussie Open for the second year running. She's Belarusian. Daniil Medvedev lost in the men's final. He's Russian. Everyone who's interested in tennis knows this already, and not a single person anywhere in the world turns off watching because of it. So ATP tennis, why bother anymore? Apart from thinking that you're changing the world, which you aren't, it's a gesture that is as weak and insipid as the IOC coming down so very hard and devastatingly heavy on Russia's Olympic athletes by not banning them from the Olympic Games. No. Just again making them wear a different coloured tracksuit when they turn up. It's farcical. If it was ever meant to somehow punish Russia, well, it hasn't worked. And in tennis, all that it does is remind everyone that sees the draw that if you have a blank beside your name, then obviously you're one of Putin's pals. Utterly irrelevant and not making a jot of difference. In tennis terms, you've got to ask, what's the point? It's way past its use-by date, and with every pun intended, come on tennis, time to flag it.
Devlin,
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
the platform.
Ricki Herbert, the only Phoenix coach to get within a game of playing the grand final. That was well over a decade or more ago now. But at the time, it set attendance records for club football in this country, with the Cake Tin packed out a couple of consecutive weeks as the Knicks ran so close. Well, top of the table after 14 games, cock-a-doodle-doo. Is it time to start talking minor premiership and beyond? Ricki Herbert joins us. Well, talk to me about this team that just continues to keep going, continues to keep winning and winning away from home.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I think, I spoke on the radio a week or a couple of weeks ago, and just leading into the Melbourne victory game at home. So, they've managed to get themselves through that. And then leading into Newcastle and a good 3 points. I think it's, I touched on that consistency, Marty, and I think, they've been probably one of the few teams, along with Victory, that have managed to achieve that this year.
Sitting top of the table, a couple of points clear now. Yeah, 8 wins, which is more than anyone else out of the 14 games. And so, look, the table doesn't lie, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, I think, we're basically halfway through, just a fraction over now, I think, on 14 games out of the 27 to be played. So, yeah, it's a good benchmark. And I think, when you look across it, if you put a ruler out there and say, if you could pick up an average of 2 points for every game across the season, then you're going to win the league. And, they currently sit on 28, which is spot on for them at the moment. And like you say, table's not going to lie.
Also, just in terms of the amount of, goals for, I mean, there's no one really setting it low. I mean, 25 goals, 27 is the max that's been scored. So, again, with the new team that he's got there, Chiefy, and losing a lot of players, how impressed are you by that stat?
Yeah, look, I think it's healthy, isn't it? And I think, what you've got now, you've had, injuries to a couple of main players coming back into the frame now, which would be great. But I think what it's done, Marty, it's put some real challenges across the group, and those players have really picked it up and accepted it. And I think you've got like a Costa Barbarouses who, didn't really, find the back of the net for a fair period of time, but wow, he's really on fire this year, and that's great to see. And I think, that's really put that depth, that challenge. The players have accepted it. And, the consistency for me has been great. And I think that's the big difference. I just don't see the consistency with the majority of teams. And so many teams are beatable. But, they're making it very difficult for no matter who they play, home and away.
Chiefy says he's not prepared to talk about a title race or a chase at the moment. It's just every game as it comes. When is it right to start talking about winning the minor premiership?
Yeah, look, I appreciate his thoughts, and I think, we're
That's all he can say as a coach, isn't he? I mean, that's all he can do. I mean, we're here to talk about that, I suppose.
Yeah, we can, and the public can, and people are going to have views on it, and I think that's great. It's a great position to be in, and I think it's a healthy point, and it's exciting, for the game to see the club leading and at the top of the table. So, look, he seems to be a very balanced person, and I guess what I've liked about it too, Marty, has been really consistent with his selections, and he hasn't made lots of changes. I think, if I look across the A-League, I think defensively there's a lot of frailties in a number of the teams, but the consistency of the players, apart from, getting a couple of suspensions here and there, or the odd injury, but, he stayed loyal to the group. And I think those players have really responded back and gone, well, I'm going to perform for you week in, week out, and we've seen it.
How do you approach the rest of the season from here then? I mean, if you're in, you put yourself back in his shoes, is it simply game by game?
Yeah, look, I think you're probably not looking at the finish line yet, to be fair, Matty, and I think that's the context with I think most managers coaching that level would look at, and I think, you know, it's what's for him happening on a day-to-day basis. I mean, he's got another suspension now, I think, with Alex Rufer being out. Tim Payne will still be out for the next game as well. So a couple of your mainstream leaders. But I think, you know, the recipe is seeing people step up, step in, get an opportunity and take it. So, you know, I don't see that as being a concern. But look, I think he'll look week to week. It sounds cliche, but, you know, I think it's good that approach is being taken because, you know, if you look realistically, unless anything quite dramatically changes, and it could do because there is a bit of up and down in the league, that, you know, they look very set to certainly be hosting a home final, which would be fantastic.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly a minute or so on each, and when the bell rings, well, we'll move quickly on to the next topic. Should we be worried, Lachlan, about our sevens sides? What, if anything, can we read into those results from Perth over the weekend? Is it time to start talking about the Knicks winning the title? That's the minor premiership. Chiefy coach says no, one game at a time. Still, NFL. You're sulking about Baltimore. You're going to be sulking about San Francisco. Is it time that the ATP and the WTA stop the silly nonsense of not showing flags of the Russian and the Belarusian players, as I've suggested? Is Klopp leaving Liverpool an impending disaster for you Scousers? And 2 cricket tests to kick it off with, Locke. And you were dancing around your flat last night with your flatmates as well. I say every time Australia loses a cricket test, the whole world celebrates. Everyone in the cricket world loves it. And I mean, the All Blacks would have been in that position. Well, you've got to date it back at least 5 years. But when we were dicking everybody, the world wants you to lose.
Yeah.
Because they want something different.
Like the Kansas City Chiefs, the world wants you to lose.
Australian Test cricket at home, they're virtually unbeatable. And that was the most unlikely win yesterday. That's what I love about sport more than anything else. Everything else is so PR'd and contrived. You know, the political interviews, you just know that there's a consultancy company behind it and there's our taxpayer money being used to spin it this way or that, and then the biased media are going to cover it this way. At least with sport, you get it raw. You can't make that up, what we saw yesterday, can you?
No.
And at the start of day's play, no one was predicting or expecting that.
It was a test that not one of myself or my 2 flatmates had watched closely for the first 3 days. And we all gathered around and we were just sort of watching the end of it, you know, it was sort of, you know, lazy sort of Sunday, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, hey, hold on here. Windies getting a few wickets. Oh, this guy, Shamar Joseph's playing well. He's the bloke who broke his toe, didn't he? Yeah. Oh, okay, let's keep watching. And then all of a sudden, you know, there was little points where the run count started to go down. You're like, oh, they're going to do it, aren't they? And then they get a wicket, like, oh, hold on a sec. And then you see some real nasty balls bowled in, and some that get nicked and nearly caught behind and whatnot, and then you're glued to it. And then it gets to a point where some get a bit closer to the wickets and they're managing to get it away, and then Hazelwood's at the crease, you're like, come on, and then just the way that last wicket just shattered the stumps. Mm-hmm. The noise, like if you're standing outside at your house, I mean, everyone in the country probably did this, everyone around the world apart from Australia did this, but if you stand on the footpath outside of your house, you probably would have heard us scream. Because we just leapt up and just went nuts and bonkers.
When it gets down to under 10 runs, like it did at Hobart in 2011, when it got to 7, I mean, you cannot watch from any other place than underneath the couch, not even behind the couch. I got the duvet and pillows over the head. I'm lying there chanting like a Buddhist monk. I'm praying that the Windies are going to win this. But I thought Steve Smith was just going to hit a couple of 4s and end it.
Yeah, I thought
put us out of our misery.
But also, it felt like something was aligning for him because they needed like 14 to win, and he only needed 13 to get a century. I thought, oh, here we go. He's going to hit all these runs and do all these wicked shots and get the ton, and they'll win the test. And then everyone's going to talk about Steve Smith 4th innings.
See, this is why we're so delighted by it, because we can't stand them. You got to have hate in sport, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
You got to hate other teams. That's what makes it more enjoyable. Which is why Liverpool losing Jurgen Klopp is so delightful. Because my whole football being only revolves around your team losing. That's all I care about. I don't even care if my team ever wins again. I just want you to lose. Your team to lose. Not you personally. I just want Liverpool to lose. So when you texted me that news on Saturday, I leapt for joy. Like the Windies winning. Look at this. I said to her, Klopp's leaving. Klopp's leaving.
She's like,
she said, what?
What's a Klopp?
What? She said, put the harness on the dog. We're taking him for a walk. I said, but Klopp's leaving.
You know what's brilliant? That our manager departing...
It's the best news I've had all season.
...is so important to you.
Yeah. That's how pathetic I am as a sports fan.
I was...
I mean, there's no shame in that.
No. I mean, look...
The only thing you want is your mate's team to lose. How do I explain that sanely?
No, I know. I'm the same. Don't worry. I was a bit upset when Solskjaer got kicked out of the job when he was winning the rest of the league matches. It was on Friday night. I had a bit of a lazy Friday night. I watched Saltburn. I had a few drinks and just sort of chilled out in the flat. And then I went to bed. And then for whatever reason, I just went and looked at my phone again. I just wanted to check the time. I wanted to see, I don't know. And then I got the notification. It was like a minute ago. Jurgen Klopp announces he's stepping down. And I thought, what?
Yeah, come on.
Come on, BBC
Fake
Sport.
news, come on.
You've got something wrong.
Yeah, come on, you're better than that.
And then I saw the interview that he did with the club. I was like, no. So it was a bit like, this sounds ridiculous and stupid. But for me, because I was a huge Kobe Bryant fan, it was almost a little bit like when Kobe Bryant died, that I just started looking through old videos, old interviews, all these wonderful things about him and the club and whatnot, and reminiscing, and when, you know, and there's all these old interviews that came up of people in Liverpool being interviewed in 1974 when Bill Shankly retired, and everyone, you know, this reporter's going around town talking to people saying, oh, Bill Shankly's just announced he's retiring. Everyone's like, you're having a laugh.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah, come on, stop.
So there's immense, unreal shock around it, but at the same time, he has, I don't know whether these are things that have come out of Klopp specifically or the club or little rumours over the last few years. He has teased it a bit, or it has been teased.
Well, he apparently decided in November.
Yeah, but that he's not going to be here forever. And I did think after last season, I thought...
Irreplaceable?
At the moment, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think he's absolutely irreplaceable. He is your Sir Alex Ferguson, and we were lucky enough to have Sir Alex for double the amount of time. That's all.
You've got to look at the success we've had with a tiny budget.
Just quickly. No, look, we'll talk about this tomorrow, mate. I mean, I don't want to harp on about his success. I'm just celebrating the fact
you could sit there and talk about your Man United all day, talk about Sir Alex and Giggsy and Scholesy and Brian Robson. But the moment that I want to add an extra 20 seconds on Liverpool, I get shut down.
Should we be worried at all about the performance of our Sevens sides in Perth?
No, thank you. I do not. I'm sorry. I know that I should to a degree. If we ever win gold medals or we win tournaments, well done. Genuinely, good on you guys. But I just don't care. I've never cared about the Sevens.
3rd of 8 tournaments in this World Series Sevens circuit. I didn't even know it was on in Perth, to be honest with you.
Didn't know there'd been 3. Didn't know there were only 8. There used to be like 15. It used to be like a Formula 1 season.
Yeah, so I switched over and saw us playing off for 9th against Samoa. I watched a couple of minutes of that. I just can't get into the sport, I'm sorry. Well, I will when it comes to the Olympics because we're playing for a gold medal, but everything else outside of that, it just doesn't seem relevant these days, does it?
And it's gone hand in hand with not the death, but the dying nature of provincial rugby. I was just thinking about this earlier, that at least when I was younger and at Sevens, you know, in sort of 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, around that period, you had guys like Victor Verde, you had DJ Forbes, you had, I think the Yuan brothers did it to start with, and I thought, well, you had names.
Mate, I remember when Christian and Jonah played in the team. Okay.
But even like when I was young, the names kind of became names because at least they did well at their NPC level. Like those guys in there, they might play NPC rugby. I wouldn't know because I don't even watch NPC rugby unless it's Hawke's Bay.
Is it time to start talking about the Knicks winning the title, the minor premier?
No, because if we talk about it, we'll jinx it.
Okay. Is it time that the ATP and the WTA stop the silly nonsense of not showing the flags of the Russian? It really is beyond a joke now,
Well, what does it achieve?
Nothing. Zero. Yeah. You had a Russian man in the final. You had a Belarusian woman winning the Australian Open.
Yeah, good job. You know, she's lifting the trophy. Oh, you showed her taking the flag away. I mean, it doesn't achieve a thing.
And as soon as you see no flag, you know that it's either one of those two countries. Yeah. To me, it's as token as... I remember the News Hub media company putting the Ukrainian colours on their masthead and on their news.
It's ticking a PR box.
It's gone, though. Oh, so what doesn't... Isn't the war important anymore? Or what you people in the you 22-year-olds in the
No, they've got to change it to a Palestinian flag now.
Well,
That's what they've got to do.
Is that the du jour protest? Is it?
Yeah. You wait for the next cause to latch on to.
So
to
do
be
a couple
popular.
of Facebook posts and write a Twitter comment and Ukraine. It's all
And
gone
then,
now.
Well, and they're like, well, Gaza. Like,
See, I find this from world tennis just to be absolute nonsense. It achieves nothing. It does nothing. It has done nothing. And anyway, there's people in the crowd waving Russian flags and Belarusian flags. Supporters.
I know.
Why are you doing this?
I was speaking with a friend over the weekend, and something came up about it. I said it's stupid. It's pointless. And then he said, "Oh yeah, but I'm kind of happy with it because it kind of ticks a box, doesn't it? And if the marketing team are happy with it or something along those lines, if people watching are fine and it satisfies them, then what's the problem?" I said, "It's pointless. If you're being satisfied by that, with all due respect, you're dumb."
Well, that's it.
And secondly, if it's not achieving anything, why even put the effort in?
It's a marketing exercise. Is that what it is?
Does that make it good?
It's a marketing
exercise. If anything,
exercise.
we're actually emphasising that they're from that part of the world by taking it away.
Against a country being invaded by another country. It's a marketing exercise.
Yeah.
Finally, NFL 24-7 at the moment. Are Detroit losing this? Are Detroit going to bottle this right now?
No.
No, they're not, are they? No, they're not. No, they're not. So it's going to be Detroit versus Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Not next weekend, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be the weekend after because they have a break now. Why do they have a break?
Do they have a break?
They've had a break since 9/11. For some reason, because it used to be straight. It used to be
straight after.
Yeah, but then
I don't know why did they bring the break in?
For whatever reason, after 9/11, they put an extra week in, and they've kept that extra week in. So there's now a fortnight between the championship games and the Super Bowl. It's in Vegas. Kansas City, as you know, this is their 4th Super Bowl in 5 years. That's called a dynasty.
Oh, stop it. They've got to win a third for it to be a dynasty. I think in the NFL, you've got to win 3 Super Bowls in like a 5-6 year stretch to be considered a dynasty.
One game away from doing it, pal. One game away. If you thought the Windies was good, then equally improbable was England's win against India in Hyderabad. Now, that's a 4-match test series. It was always going to be an absolute barnstormer. 2 of the best teams at test cricket playing each other in India. And the Poms so far behind. Was that the end of Baz ball? 190 runs behind on the first innings. Yeah, you're playing too attacking. You're taking too many chances. And then Ollie Pope comes in, 196. And then a guy called Tom Hardy, who was just absolutely smacked all over the shop in the first innings, gets a 7 for. Just as extraordinary as the Windies winning. God bless Test cricket. What an extraordinary win for you lot.
Oh, mate, Happy New Year to you and all your listeners, of course. I mean, we've had the best test matches in recent history in the last 12 hours, haven't we? Brisbane and Hyderabad. And fortunate enough to have been producing our coverage on talkSPORT from Hyderabad. We've got a team out there, Steve Harmison, Neil Manthorpe, Harsha Bogle, KP's involved as well. And a couple of others, and I mean, there's a lot of caps in that dressing room. There's a lot of experience, and few, if any, outside of the England dressing room gave England any hope whatsoever. When 5 down in second innings, still needing another 20-odd runs to just make India bat again, with Ollie Pope at crease, unbeaten on 60, I think, but he'd been out for 1 in the first innings. Ben Foakes with him, his Surrey teammate who'd scored 4. Neither of these two played any Test cricket for 6 months, longer actually, in the case of Foakes, who hadn't played since New Zealand back in Wellington, or back in February in Wellington. And yet here we are, 36 hours later, looking back at a Test match that involved a career-defining 196 from Ollie Pope, which Joe Root ranked as the best he'd ever seen and better than any of the 30-odd Test centuries he'd scored, and 7 for on debut from a guy that most people wouldn't know if you bumped into him on the street 3 days ago, Tom Hartley, and who had a horror first day in Test cricket. So it just goes to show, you can love and watch this sport for decades and still find something that completely knocks you down and surprises you. And here we are, England 1-0 up with 4 to play.
Ben Stokes hailing this as he says the greatest since he's been captain. Extraordinary, phenomenal. These are the words that have been used. And some of the stats that have come out of this, you got to remember, going to the subcontinent and winning any single cricket test is hard enough. But when India have 100 or more in a first innings lead, they haven't lost a single test in 106. So let's just look at that stat to start with, John. So that's the mountain your blokes had to climb.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at all the bare stats, I think there's been one team that scored 400 plus in second innings in India in about the same amount of time. As you say, no team has given up a deficit approaching 196. In the history of Test cricket, here's a stat for you. It's the 10th biggest deficit, which has resulted in victory for the team that was batting, that was behind the game after first innings. So in 2,500 Test matches, only 9 games have gone the way of a side that have yielded more than 196. And the last time England did it was Headingley in 1981. That's the next one on the list for England. So that's how big it is, because that's one of the most, in fact, that is the most famous Test match of them all.
Yes.
Botham's ashes at Headingley, when they gave up, they followed on, of course, and they gave up 206 or something stupid. So, it's up there with one of the greatest ever achievements. But when you throw into the mix that India are immortal on home soil, they haven't lost a Test series in India for 11 years. When you throw into the mix just how strong this India side is, when you throw into the mix how many caps the bowling side have within this India lineup, it just it makes it even more ridiculous. But for me, and Darren Gough summed this up absolutely perfectly as part of our commentary team, the fact that Ben Stokes can take a team to India and win a Test match, which and his side features a bowler on debut in Tom Hartley, a bowler who's playing in his 5th Test match, leg spinner Rayan Ahmed, a bowler in Jack Leach who hasn't played in the best part of a year through injury, and then one seamer in Mark Wood, and then have to rely on a part-time spinner in Joe Root. The idea that you can take 20 wickets in India inside 4 days with that bowling lineup and win a game where you're 190 behind on first innings, I mean, if you made that up, nobody would believe you.
LBP, Matt Gunn being positive out of Twizel. Well, he's Aussie, and they lost to the Windies. He's a Liverpool fan, and manager Jurgen Klopp has said that at the end of the season, he's up and off. Oh, okay, Matt, I'm looking forward to this. Be positive, mate. Colder than the Australian Test cricket dressing room, Matt.
Well, you can imagine the mood in there as opposed to the mood in the West Indies dressing room. 27 years.
Yeah.
27 years for them to claim another Test victory. And what a victory it was. And last week, the question was raised briefly by yourself, should we be playing these?
Well,
guess what?
Yeah.
This is exactly the reason why we should. The Windies were 5 for 64 before recovering in the first innings, and then to win it before the end of day 4 in the way they did shows what Test cricket's all about. Hang in, and a performance by an individual who was still bleeding from the toe mark, apparently. Wasn't ready to play, didn't want to come to the ground, got to the ground, didn't have his gear. My goodness, the story that delivers is something the short form of cricket can't. There can be upsets over a 2020 or a day, but this kind of performance is why people love Test cricket. And the West Indies are saying, we need more. We need more. And I'm not sure they were saying that up until this victory, but now they've seen they can win, they want more, and I want more.
So, and also what you're saying there is the upsets in T20 or limited overs cricket, 50 over cricket. The problem is that you're only upset for a day. This one lasts forever, doesn't it? And that's the thing about Test cricket. We will talk about this for the next 10 years, 20 years, or maybe 27 years until it happens again. In the meantime, who won the Super? I don't know. Was it rained out? Who's winning that Bangladesh T20? The South African T20 at the moment. Are the cornholers playing the bum slappers? We don't know the result. Look, it's just a whole lot of meaningless dribble, isn't it? And yet this, you got to realise as well, Matt, that the whole world celebrates when you lose a test match, mate. We all celebrate.
Exactly, Martin. Exactly. And you know what? As much as I didn't like to see that they'd won, the fondness I have for Test cricket is always rekindled that little bit extra when you see that these results can take place. You lose a few early wickets or 4 or 5 wickets into one day, pretty much the game's over if you're 5 for 64. But to be able to play over 4 days, fight back, have a bloke with his toes smashed by an amazing Yorker, and then come out and take 7, player of the match, the series, come on. I mean, what more do you want? Rodney Hogg said they were pathetic. They were an absolute waste of space. He said they were hopeless. And they took that and they say that was inspirational to them. And I tell you what, none of them will ever forget it. And even if Shamar Joseph never does anything better than this, wouldn't that be a great thing to hang your hat up on?
No, it doesn't have to do stuff all else from there, does it? The other thing that sticks in the craw is we're kind of also celebrating the Poms winning, beating India. So this is the worst thing that could happen in your cricket world, isn't it? You lose and you're celebrating the Poms.
Yeah, and honestly, I want everyone to beat England. I am less fond of England than I'm less fond of India, if you know what I mean. I would have loved India to win it, but that's, look, this year...
Well, we're finding positives, mate. That's the point of this. We're finding positives because we're being positive.
Sometimes I'm not even struggling, actually, Martin, to be positive. I'm not struggling. I don't know why.
You'll be struggling about Jurgen Klopp, though, won't you? Because how do you put a positive spin on that? The fact that you're now going to tailspin into a decade or more like your eternal rivals, my mob Man United, since Sir Alex left.
Oh, surely someone can come in and keep the ball rolling.
Right, we thought that too. 6 managers later, mate, we're still asking.
Oh. Well, this will be his 8th year, right?
Yep.
And I reckon he sees massive, massive success this year and a great way for him to finish. But it's always hard to lose the man that's got you to the great finish. I don't know. Who do we bring in? I mean, who's on the table? Are we even thinking about that yet? We're just soaking up the detail. What I do know is it's our year, regardless of the future. Let's be positive and just focus. Just focus on where we are, the lead we have, and the unstoppable, unbeatable nature that we're displaying this year. It's our year, Martin. We're going to rack them up and we're going to have a massive party for the German. That's it. That's what we're going to do.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.